When someone gets funded to do his or her master's or PhD in the US or Canada, there is one question that most people will normally ask. The question is this: how did he do it? Or how did she do it? But after years of studying the graduate funding system in the US and Canada, there is one question that I have realized that most people do not ask. The question is, why did the system choose them? After all, they were not the only people who applied for that particular funding. That person who got that funding for his or her master's or PhD was not the only person who applied for that particular opportunity. There were hundreds and thousands of other people who applied for that funding. So the question is, why did the system choose this particular person to be awarded the funding for his master's or for his PhD in the US or Canada? Now, I want you to know this. The first question focuses on action, while the second question focuses on interpretation. Most people apply for admissions in the US and Canada, they get the admission all right, but they don't get the funding simply because they don't understand how graduate funding works in the US and in Canada. For most people, they think that their chances is based on how good their grades are, how high their GPA is, how strong their recommendation letter is, or their SOP. These things are very, very important. But until and unless you understand how graduate funding works both in the US and Canada, your application is always going to be generic. If there is anything you are going to take from this video, I want you to understand this. The graduate funding both in US and Canada is research-based system. It does not necessarily depend on your academic performance, how high your GPA is, how strong your SOP. Unfortunately, most people spend weeks and months and years polishing their SOP, polishing their recommendation letters, working so hard to get a very high GPA. This is important, but the utmost, most important thing in the US graduate funding system is about your research capability. So the question is, why would a university, why would a department, or why would a professor, upon all the applications that they have received, why would that professor or that department in that university in US or Canada, why would that department or professor award you that funding for your master's or PhD program? What are they looking for? Is it only your academic performance? And the answer is a big no. In the US and Canada graduate funding system, their main goal is this: they are looking for future research contributors. They are looking for future emerging researchers. It is not just about your academic profile, but they are looking for somebody who will contribute to research. In this case, it means that your SOP, your CV, whatever document that you are going to gather as part of your application, it must have an element of research. It must prove, it must portray you as an emerging researcher in your field. That is what is going to increase your chances of getting funding, whether for your master's or PhD in the US or Canada. This is why two people with the same GPA, they went to the same school, they did the same course, both of them can apply to the same institution in a US university or a Canadian university to do their master's or PhD. Now, after the whole process, one person will get funding for his or her master's, the other person is not going to get it. The reason is very simple. One person understands how graduate funding works in the US and Canada, the other person does not. Now, over the years, I have reviewed hundreds of CVs, both successful and for those who were also not successful applying for master's or PhD in the US and Canada. There is one thing that I have observed. Most people fail in their application not because they are not ambitious, but simply because they don't understand how graduate funding works both in the US and in Canada. It is for this reason that at Pesavalley, we have developed the Graduate Funding Readiness Assessment. Now, this assessment is going to help you to determine the weaknesses and the strength and the gaps in your CV and how you can fill those gaps before you make that application to that particular university. Again, the assessment will find funded program that matches and aligns with the program that you want to do. If you want to apply for a university in US and Canada and you want funding, the best thing you can do is to take an assessment first. Before you apply to that university, before you write that letter to that professor, before you start even searching for which university to apply for your master's or for your PhD, there's one thing that you need to do. Take the Graduate Funding Readiness Assessment first.